Salam Malaysia Madani. Selamat sore kepada rakan-rakan daripada Indonesia. Alright. So my name is Nasrul Anwar. Technically just call me Nas. So I will be the moderator for this session known as Fostering Impactful Research Towards the Committee. We are looking forward from the present day, historicals, and also what could be the direction of our future. All right. So before we go further, I would like to call all of the participants, all right, to move forwards and also maybe sitting in the middle so that we can have a proper overview about what we would like to discuss. All right. Okay. So moving forward, actually, what we would like to discuss or moderate or have a forum session for this afternoon is that looking forward to a 5 different stakeholder. I believe that 50% of us here is actually come from the academia, from the Institute Higher Learning. Either you are from Universiti Malaya or universities IPTA, IPTS, and also our collaborative partner from Indonesia, Universiti Airlangga. So 50% of us is coming from the field of academia. So we've been include with a lot of couples of more project related towards the committee engagement. All right. And then bear in mind that nowadays they are focusing on the 5 different stakeholders when you conduct a research. So the first one could be the community where you want to develop or where you want to deliver the project that you have come out. The first one. The second one will be the government agency. So we are talking about Kementerian Pengajian Tinggi, Kementerian Kerja Raya, Kementerian Kesihatan, etc. And the third one will be the academia, who is running or do research that related to the needs of the community. Apart from that, the fourth element will be someone who is actually coming from the industry. So nowadays, whenever we apply for any grants, whenever we apply for a project, it is encouraged us, or at least it is a must to have an industry collaborator inside our projects as well. So that have become a fourth element of our stakeholder. And the fifth element will be the social media nowadays. So this is the most important part as well. So these 5 elements, 5 stakeholders, known as a pentahelix. So these 5 elements, 5 collaborators, need to work starting from today actually, all right, to have our sustainability SDG 17 achieved, and also to make a world a better place to live in coming future. All right. So with that, I would like to call one by one our panel for today. So first, we would like to have someone that is from the academia background. All right. So he is actually a physiotherapist from. Sorry, is he a physiotherapist or prophet? No, wrong. Okay, sorry. All right, so he is actually a consultant, psychiatrist, and then he is expert in the smoking cessation, specialized from the Universiti Malaya. All right, and he as well is one of the coordinator of the nicotine addiction research group from the UMCHAS. All right, and then he also have a couple of special project from the government, especially from the Ministry of Health, to documents including the Tobacco Control National Strategic Plan in 2015 until 2020, all right? And he is right now serving as our director of a UMCAS. So please give applause for Associate Professor, Dr. Amir Siddiq bin Amir Nordin. Thank you, sir. Please. All right, continue with our second partner. So we have someone who is actually have a more than 30 years experience in the media massa ataupun social media. All right, so we are talking about different kind of a platform of social media massa. We are talking about the akhbar, surat khabar. We are talking about the internet, vice versa, and etc. So he is actually someone who is really experienced. He's from a different entity or unit here in Malaysia, and right now he is serving as the general director of a broadcasting Malaysia, and also together with the RTM, all right? And he have experience before with the Astro Awani, with the TV3, with the Bernama, all right? So I have a lot of a list here, okay? So kalau saya nak baca tu memang sangat panjang lah, all right? And then he also involved with a couple of a consultation related to the Petronas, UTP, 1901 hot dog, face-to-face editor, Teleskop, Malaysia Hari Ini, Bincang Petang dan sebagainya, ada banyak dalam list saya. So he's a really well-known and also experienced guy in our social media and also media lah, dalam media masa punya industri. Okay, so and if I'm not mistaken as well, he is actually born or from the bank punya unit, tak silap saya kan. Previously, before with the media masa, dia adalah seorang commerce bank, nowadays known as a CIMB if I'm not mistaken. Yep. So itu adalah journey, perjalanan 30 tahun di Malaysia. Alright. So please give a big applause to Datuk Suhaimi Sulaiman. Okay, thank you, Datuk. Alright, last but not least, to fulfill the 5 elements inside the pentahelix, we need someone from the industry, we need someone from the committee side. Alright, so this guy, actually someone who is a CEO of the EPIC. Alright, so EPIC stand for Extraordinary People Impacting Community. So Extraordinary People Impacting Community. So dia punya short form is a EPIC, right? Alright. So basically this epic ni, it has been established years ago. So where they tackle the committee orang asli. Alright. So during those kind of a thing, we have a lot of a problem and crisis with the orang asli. So alhamdulillah, this epic with a lot of community service and etc. They come, they jump, they provide a platform to Malaysian community to help other Malaysian communities as well. And if I'm not mistaken, our third panel is actually coming from communication side degree, if I'm not mistaken. And then he returned back to Malaysia, become a part-time teacher, part-time research assistant, and part-time fitness consultation, something like that, if I'm not mistaken. And then while he was doing all of that 3 kind of jobs, he figured out this is not what he's supposed to do in helping the world. Alright, he said he must help the committee. That's why he's organizing the EPIC to help the committee. Alright, so of course we're going to know more about him later on. So with that, also give a applause to Johnson Oi. Thank you, sir. Yes. Okay, baik, cukup 3 orang. We have 3 panelists today. So one from academia side, one from the media, and another one is from the industry and also the committee platform. Alright, okay. Yes, so we're going to start our forum today with a couple of round. Alright, and then for the first round, as the topic being given, that we would like to know about the past, present, and also the future. Alright. Now imagine yourself as a researcher, as an industry key player, as a committee that need help nowadays. So we are at the stage of a present. Alright, so we would like to know a couple of story from the past, and also we would like to know the direction of the coming futures as well. So dealing with a committee as well is actually dealing with different kind of a generation. Alright, so menggambarkan or resembles our coming 66 Merdeka celebration. Of course, we would like to know as well some of the historical moment where we as academia, media, and also the industry and also the user community involved throughout the 60 years of the Merdeka punya celebration lah, up until to this day. But first, we would like to know more about the present day, what we have from the academia side, what we have from the media side, and what could we have from the industry side and also the community side. So with that, we start first, our first round of a discussion. So for our first round of the discussion, of course, I would like to invite Dr. Amir here to discuss about a couple of matters or his overview about what we have nowadays as the academia. So we are talking about the research or any kind of a project that related with the community engagement towards the Malaysian community, and also if there's a possibilities with the Nusantara Indonesias as well, and what could he oversee, what have we done so far with the entire of Malaysia. A lot of a project being applied, a lot of a project being implemented by Universiti Malaya, for example. So we just want to know overview first. What are we have nowadays as in the present days? So what could we have? A bit from you, Dr. Amir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nasrul, for the kind introduction, and also to my esteemed panelists as well for joining me on stage today. It's really an honor to be here to share with you a number of ideas, and hopefully we'll get some of you here as well to join us and participate in this forum that we've got today, which I think is really important. So I think just going back to the present, as Dr. Nasrul had mentioned just now, I think at the moment, as you rightly mentioned, we are really looking at this thing called the pentahelix, which looks at the community at large, and how does the community, how can we in academia work together with the community but differentiate ourselves from, say, for example, a non-governmental organization that is already present in the community. And I think one of the main output or opportunities that we have to contribute to community is going to be in some of the academic outputs that we've got, mainly in terms of research. And the research could be either in a type of prototype being formed, for example. It could be in a new idea that's been found in the research, or it could be in terms of the training or the expertise of the person that is within the academic setting. Now the difference that we've seen between the past and the present is that now we are more moving towards asking the community what they actually want. Another issue that we've also noticed at the present that we want to highlight is about sustainability. I think we have discussed just now about some activities that we've done in the past, at least in our conversations, which sometimes don't last the distance. And I think looking back into the present moment, we are also thinking about how can we actually sustain certain projects throughout the present and moving into the future. I think that's a kind of issue. Now, one area of work that has been highlighted in the past is that we are not visible, and I think this is where the pentahelix now includes the element of visibility, sharing in its various forms. And again, this is something that we are working on at the present. So to give you a rough idea about what we're doing at the moment, I think the most easiest way to look at it is to look at the SDGs. I think the number of SDGs out there, the ones that were shared in this morning's keynote address, and we are looking at every single element of the SDGs and the community work that we're doing in order for us to contribute back towards society. So that's roughly what we're doing at the present, and these are some of the activities that we have been doing and the focus that we're looking at. I mean, I won't highlight the type of work that we're doing. We might discuss it a little bit further, but it just gives you a bit of an idea about what's happening at the present, at the moment, in terms of community engagement in the academic settings.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Amir, for introduction, a bit about what academia have been doing so far. Moving forward, all right, we would like to have a general overview coming from the media side. Dr. Suhaimi, can you somehow brief a bit about where do you see nowadays media towards the research, towards the community engagement, and etc.? Maybe a bit input coming from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nasrul. Hi, my name is Suhaimi. I'm 61 years old. Yeah, I know I look 31. I am the Director General of RTM. RTM is basically, we run the terrestrial television station. We have TV1, TV2, TV3, TV OK, TV Sukan, and we have 34 radio channels, and we are also on OTT, download RTM Click right now. So anyway, I've been asked to talk about, apa ni? Yes, community engagement. Oh my God. Yeah, that's what happens when you ask people to talk after lunch. Now, I just want to tell a story so that you understand where I'm coming from, yeah? Okay, RTM employs 4,400 people nationwide, yeah? Okay, right now what we do is, okay, this is where you can see how we engage communities, yeah? Now, there is this association, the name of this association is Persatuan Veteran RTM, which means those who have served RTM and now they're retired. Yeah? Now, the association has been around for the last 28 years, and currently they have 1,200 members. So what do? They are a bunch of very talented people. They used to be producers, they used to be anchor people, editors, engineers, name it, they're all in there. So what do they do now? So these 1,200 people are actually out there giving back to the community, yeah? So they provide consultancy work. They actually help people who would want to come up with content. So they do content creation, content development. The engineers are also helping out in infrastructure for some other content channels, be it terrestrial television, be it social media or whatever that you can think of. And there's so many things that they do. Yeah. So now the media, we are still we're the media, and these are the retired people. So what do? We engage them. They want to be sustainable. So what they do is they make money so that the money can actually help out in their activities. And they have also set up a kooperasi whereby the members will get profits, later on from the shares. And we, as RTM, what we do is we provide them an office space. Yeah, we provide them with connectivity, and we help them whenever that they need to tell the world what they are doing. So I think what's important is we, the media, will be able to help out whatever work that's been done by these people so that the nation will know. Yeah? So they give back to the communities, they give back to the nation, so we tell the story. So we are not just the platform, but we are actually associating with them, and we actually help them grow. So this is basically what we do, and we have been doing this for the last 28 years. So now, moving forward with the technology and all that, we are also engaging in content creation with them. Yeah? We are soon going to go into, hopefully, electronic coffee table book, if you can look at it in that way. So communities are actually contributing, so the media is the platform to tell the stories, and soon they will have their own media. In fact, they're already running their own TV channel on YouTube. So this is where we help out as a media company. That's where I want to start first, and then later on we can go ahead, or else I will hog the limelight. I love to talk. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Datuk Suhaimi. So now it's a bit of information from there. It's actually how social media have played a key roles as well, involving with the community engagement project and etc. So that's why we have a lot of influencers nowadays. Hope some of it coming from our educators academia side as well, and also from the industry base as well. So we also would like to have some overview from Mr. Johnson, related to where and how the involvement of the EPIC nowadays, what did you do so far, and in the present day, how many committees, and also what could be examples of a project that you are handling right now.
Thanks so much. Very good afternoon to everyone. Hope you guys are able to fight the urge to nap because of lunch. It's a great privilege to be here. My name is Johnson. And I run an organization called EPIC, as Dr. Nas has already pointed out. EPIC, Extraordinary People Impacting Communities, isn't just our name, but it also encapsulates the vision that we have for this country and also of this world, where we believe that each individual actually has the potential to make a significant change in improving the communities around them. And all they need is that know-how and that platform to make that difference. And so in the work that we do, I have the privilege to work with multiple stakeholders, where in understanding our method of change, essentially it starts with, so we work with marginalized communities or poor or impoverished communities. But the way we look at them is not as people that just needs help. What we look at them, how we look at them is as people who are untapped potential. These are potential change makers, but because they have been bogged down by day-to-day struggles and adversity, they are unable to think beyond themselves, and they are unable to then fulfill their potential and their purpose. I strongly believe as human beings, I believe that we're not put on this earth to just enjoy things for ourselves, but I think it's to serve and to give back to the community itself. And so going back to our method of change, it starts with, I suppose, the privilege. We would label them as thriving individuals. And then we provide them with the avenues to be able to be connected to those that are surviving. And so those are your people in the hardcore poor category. And we look at what are the specific needs, basic needs, that may be lacking in these communities that are holding them back from having a fighting chance or to be able to determine the kind of future that they would like. You know, we hear a lot about how education is the most important thing if you want to get someone a brighter future. But how can you focus on studies, doing your homework, focus in lectures if you don't have food on the table each day, or you don't have a proper house that you can lay your head in? And so the moment we provide these basic needs to the marginalized communities, then they move on to being a striving individual. And that's where we then facilitate by providing them better opportunities, higher income opportunities, or if they do not have the adequate skill set, then we look at providing upskilling and education opportunities as well. And all of this is so that they eventually make this circle. So you can think of it as a circle. You start as a thriving individual, you help someone who's surviving, someone surviving makes his way to become a striving individual, and then eventually they become someone who's thriving as well. And their goal of making this whole journey isn't so that they can just sustain themselves from a socio-economical standpoint, but it's so that they would give back and continue this cycle that had been started before. And so that sort of method of change underpins the various work that we do, which takes shape in the form of one program called Epic Homes, where we build homes for the Orang Asli or indigenous communities in Malaysia itself. What's unique about this is the houses that are built by unskilled volunteers. And these houses are designed in a way that can be put together in a matter of 3 days. Think of it like IKEA furniture or playing with Lego. And people like you guys as well, even at 61 years old, even though I don't believe you, you look probably 15 to 20 years younger than that, you can actually join and build these homes. So that's Epic Homes. Another such platform where we encourage this cycle to take place is a tech platform called Sedunia. You can find it on sedunia.me, where it provides tools to change makers to organize and recruit volunteers, as well as raise funds and or crowdfund. And the last platform that we have is called PARC or Park, and it's basically a community space set in the middle of a well-to-do community in Subang Jaya, where the idea is that this creates a showcase for sustainability and community living. And the idea is to build this culture within these privileged spaces and be able to mobilize resources and energy so that we can redirect them to more marginalized communities out there that may be in need. So think of them as wealth or resource redistribution centers as well. So all three of these platforms then we intend to form an ecosystem. But I think before I guess I pass the mic back, I'm not sure how much time I have, but before I pass it on, the way we do it is as important as what we do as well, you know. And so the mindset that we have is, as mentioned, when we look at, say, an Orang Asli person, we don't look at the person merely as a beneficiary, just waiting for charity, but we look at them as equal partners in solving whatever community problems that we are facing at hand. But in order to make that happen, then we need to equip our volunteers to have that sort of mindset as well. Because how aid is delivered to the community member if done in a way where it treats them like charity, where they feel like they feel disempowered in the process, then you lose that chance to inspire them to then become a local change maker, and that ends up becoming a potential handout mentality in the process. So relationship building is a key part of the work that we do. Hence, for example, in the work of Epic Homes, the empowering of people to be able to build these homes themselves. Because in the process, they're building relationships with the community. Instead of looking at them as a volunteer, now they've become a friend. And that actually creates the potential of a long-term support system where we're able to identify more precise needs that these communities might have, and while also allowing for these volunteers, now friends, to play an active role in solving these problems. Some of it that might be so minute that it's not worth perhaps the ministry getting involved in the process, or even starting an NGO to solve that particular issue. For example, say for example, if they need something like a laptop because their kid is going to school and they need a laptop to go there. You know, and in that particular case, you don't need to start an entire NGO that specializes in giving kids laptops for education. In this case, it could just be between a friend and actually help one another on a peer-to-peer level. Yeah, so that's, I suppose, in a nutshell, what Epic is working on at this point in time.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Johnson. So basically, we understand here, this is one of the examples of industrial committee-based project, all right? So if I'm not mistaken, they are so-called as a EPIC DNA. So creating the EPIC DNA, that you have a DNA to help others as well, all right? If I'm not mistaken as well, fun fact, the fact is actually not the fun fact, all right? Okay, sorry, Prof. Rame. All right, so Mr. Johnson had come up with the EPIC since 2011, all right? So up until today, 2010, all right? So he has around 5,000 volunteers. So counted up as well, he has built 163 houses for the Orang Asli, all right? And it is still, the numbers is still increasing. They are looking for the volunteer. They are looking for a housing project as well. Now imagine if this is one of the examples of a project. If it involves the media, if it involves the academia, for example, maybe the house that is he built in the 3 days can be finished within just 1 day or 2 days. Depends on the new research, new methods, new materials, and etc. So that's why we need to complete the pentahelix collaborations. There's an industry, there's a committee, there's an academia, government agency, and also the social media to play a role there as well. Maybe this kind of a project can be implemented when we having a banjir besar, for example. There's a tsunami, for example. So we can somehow consult a house within just a couple of days to help our committee. So this is one of the examples coming from the EPIC DNA. All right, now moving forward with the second round of the moderation session, we would like to see the journey from the past. All right, we here as the academia, as the industry, know what we're supposed to deliver nowadays. But we want to know what happened for the past 20 years, what happened to the past 30 years that is moving forward to the community engagement project. So we would like to know first a bit of an overview from the academia side. We would like to know what are the hiccups, what could be the gaps that we have previously. Why nowadays people are talking about this SDG? Why nowadays people are encourage us to complete this pentahelix? Why not it begin since 50 years ago, where academia directly involved with the community? So maybe Dr. Amir here can give an overview about a bit about the historical parts. What could be the direction? What happened in the previous sector of the academia? Even though some of the examples is that Universiti Malaya itself. So nowadays most of the project encourage to go moving forward to the SDGs. At the output of the project, we need to somehow deliver it to the community, and community need to sustain using that without the help from the universities. So maybe, Dr. Amir, you have any input coming from the previous years, historical, why the platform changed, 20 years, 30 years, what we have those days, we don't have 2 days. All right.
Thank you very much again. I think historically we actually have our plenary speaker, Prof. Manso, in the crowd here, who could probably give us a bit of history. I've been the director in UM for the last 5 years, working in academia. And from what my colleagues, Prof. Manso and also Prof. Coswell, who's also here somewhere, has shared with me in the past, we used to look at it from a point of view of the community, a government agency, and the university. This used to be what tradition has been the case. And often from the university point of view and from the government agency, we used to direct our ideas towards the community, which means that sometimes it is what we have in the institutions that we feel the community would benefit from, and therefore we, in a way, subject them towards certain activities. However, more and more, the ability to sustain such projects doesn't work at all with this kind of approach. So somewhere along the line, there was something called the quadrihelix, where you would then get a collaborative partner from the industry or the non-governmental agencies to actually work together with the university and the governmental agency in a particular community. And then more and more, the discussion is going to be not what can we provide to the community, but what does the community want from us? So there was a lot of differences, as I think what you've mentioned just now, Johnson, in the shift of mindset. And we were talking about this just now as people in government agencies, how sometimes we have an idea, we want to impose it upon the greater community, but it's not taken up by the greater community because that's not what they want. And I think once we do a lot of reassessment from the community and figure out what they want, we go back into the universities to see whether we've got those expertise. And if we don't have those expertise, then we talk to the relevant agencies to see whether they can support us in terms of sustaining such a project within that community and that community issue. Now, for it to actually stick into the community and make an impact, because this is the difference before in the past, it's about making an impact. It's not about output anymore. It's not about what number of people participate in the project. It's actually seeing whether there's going to be a change or whether there's going to be some kind of difference that you make within that community. We often get the government agencies involved because then we will be able to sustain to a certain level, but more and more we're getting the industry and the non-governmental agencies included because they're the ones that often work together with certain communities. And I think when we've done that, we've seen that some projects are able to sustain a bit longer. Now the problem with impact is that you need to also visibilize or share with individuals or agencies or people about the output and the outcome of that work. And I think this is where more and more they've been discussing about something called the fifth element, which is the media group, which then becomes the pentahelix model, because now not only are you wanting projects to be sustained, but you want them to be visible. And I think when they're visible, there's a few things that I think happens. One is that you're able to attract more funders. Number two is that there's some level of accountability. You can imagine, you go on the newspaper or in the television, and then you share your project, and then maybe the news people come back, say another year later or 2 years later, they talk to you about that same project. It's going to be a bit embarrassing if you tell them that the project has now died. So to a certain level, you want it to be visible so that people know and can contribute, but at the same time for the individual, the researcher, I think to a certain level, you're going to be also asking for some level of accountability as well, which allows individuals to then keep on working on that particular project. So I think these are some of the changes that we've seen over the last few years that I've been working in community engagement. I think moving forward, we're looking at things like less reliance on government funding. I mean, when I listened to what Johnson was sharing just now about how he moved the EPIC, in a little bit, I feel a bit embarrassed because as an academic in a local governmental institution, we do get certain level of funding to run certain projects. Yet when he shared with us that he's been in the community for the last 13 years, I'm trying to ransack my brain to see what are the projects that we've done within our institution that has lasted that same difference. And I think the fact that I can't come up with a good answer means that we're not doing good enough work. And I think this is where we have to relook and probably focus a lot on the sustainability of these projects, because it's not just about sharing projects that work, but it's also making sure that we're going to be in the community for a long way to come. I think the other thing that I also, as I'm listening to what Johnson was sharing, is about the idea that they had in terms of building homes for orang asli, for example. For us in the university, we would like to do the same project, but we cannot be doing the same thing that EPIC has been doing, because that's what the non-governmental organizations are sort of doing, at least when they start. It has to have some level, as you mentioned just now, a technological advancement, or an innovation inclusion, or it must be something that shows some level of novelty or difference. Because if not, there's no difference between an academic opportunity or a project compared to whatever is being able out there. And I'm pretty sure people like Dr. Suhaimi here wouldn't want a project that imitates what everybody else is doing. They want something that's a bit novel and something a bit different. And I'm pretty sure also the funders won't want to support something that another person is already doing or 3 other people are doing. And I think this is where I think universities needs to really look back into the work that they're doing and seeing which are the projects that they can actually push forward. I think more and more what we're doing, at least in Universiti Malaya, is trying to share with our researchers on how to translate the research that they're doing into a community project, and how do we make that community project impactful in the next 1, 3, 5, and 10 years, so that when we actually pitch to funders or when we actually share that idea and project across into the community, that we'll be quite proud of it, rather than for us to be worried that it won't be there the next 1 or 3 years. So I think that is the difference, I think, between the past and the present in terms of the community work that we're doing, I think across all universities in the country, whether it's in the government or in the private sector at this point of time.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Amir. Actually, as a researcher as well, living here in Malaysia, for example, all right, so we have a really sustained environment yearly, all right, so we know what is our weather every year, every day. Our problem could be sustained as well. So whenever it is end of year, there will be a banjir there, banjir here, and etc. So it's a different environment when you are living outside of Malaysia. You could have an earthquake, you could have natural disasters, and etc. But here in Malaysia, it is really sustained for the past 30 to 50 years ago. So that's why, talking about a sustained project, we have a real environment, we have a lot of case studies. So what Johnson had did is actually something is really need to be seen by others as well, especially us, researcher, academia, where we should involve with this kind of a project as well. So moving forwards as well, I would like to have a couple of overview from the past historical agenda or any kind of research that been, it's so-called as a 30 years punya experience, what have been like, oh, these are one of the project that I still remember, it still can be sustained, examples of the project. So we are here clear about what is actually media is looking forward, all right? So when I was growing up, I watching 98 punya Sukan Commonwealth, for example, and then we saw a twin tower of a Petronas. We saw our Penang Bridge from first link, second link, and etc. So that's that kind of a project. We only know it from the surat khabar, from the berita, that's all. Is it involved any expert from the academia side? Is it involved with the industry? Is it involved the input coming from the community? You want to build a new building here at Kuala Lumpur, for example. Is it involved the survey or also the input coming from the community? You shouldn't build this kind of a tall building because it's going to be make a Kuala Lumpur flood and etc. So where do you see this, Datuk Suhaimi, after 30 years of experience, any kind of examples of a project that you think, oh, this is good, academia, industry should follow this kind of a project?
Okay, thank you so much. For something to be impactful, yeah, I think Dr. Amir mentioned earlier, it has to be visible, yeah? And you must be visible because only then you will get the support, the funding, and whatever that you need, yeah? Okay, let me just tell you a story. This is history and how we are evolving. Yeah? Okay, when I first started in the media about 32 years ago, yeah, you create content. A good content is a 1 hour program. Yeah? And then later on, people are so hooked to the internet. And that was when the attention span it becomes shorter and shorter and shorter. Yeah? If you look at the news on RTM, it used to be 1 hour. Yeah? Now the news is 15 minutes. Now we're going to go even shorter, 12 minutes, 10 minutes, because the attention span of people is getting shorter and shorter. Previously, all the stories will come from, when I first started, you know, it was only television. And whatever people say on television, yeah, okay, good, one way. And then later on, there was this internet, and people get to respond. They give you feedback. Yeah. So moving forward, okay, I used to host a program on TV3 about research and development. So we partner Universiti Malaysia at that time, and some of the research work are really boring for television. Really, really boring. You'll drive your audience to death. Yeah, basically. Now, but there were researchers that did very, very well for television. For example, you can build houses, an idea for you, from human waste, basically. So they treated human waste with very high temperature, and then the professor came to my show and provided me with a mug. And you can drink from this, Suhaimi. And what is this made of? Human waste. Yeah. So those are interesting stories on television. And now things have even evolved, yeah? Because people want to know what's happening in the campuses, how people are affected. Yeah? So I think the opportunity now is for us to become storytellers. You can't just do things, but you have to train yourself to tell the world what you are doing. Then you will impact many people. People will come and help you out. Because if not, the research that you do, the projects that you do, will only be among you, your friends, maybe your superiors. So you get your KPIs and all that, but it will not be impactful. All you know, other people can actually help you out, and there will be a very, very big movement. So as a media person, things are getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. You know, I recently helped to start a TV station for the state of Sarawak. So to start a TV station today, it's not as expensive as previously, though it's still expensive, but things are getting cheaper and cheaper. So now, if you're a scientist, or if you're working on a certain project, it is expected of you today to become a storyteller as well. Yeah? You can have people with kaki palsu, for example. Now you have to tell the world how kaki palsu will actually help people out. So, for example, even in RTM, if you're an engineer, we train them to be storytellers. And they go out and they give talks. And we are also working with the community. For example, soon on RTM we'll be showing little kids. Actually, this was initiated by the government of Terengganu. Actually, little kids in primary school, they are now journalists because they tell the world about what's happening in their community, and it's very, very impactful. So I think moving forward, I think what the community is doing, how others can help out, and how you can get more funding, and you can achieve whatever that you want to achieve even faster when there is a movement backing you up. So I think moving forward, the most important thing is, number one, we all have to become great storytellers. Number one. Number two, you just have to learn how to use simple tools. Today, when I first started, reporters carry these huge cameras to capture things. Yeah? Today, you can be a breaking news reporter by just bringing your iPhone or an Oppo or a Samsung. That will do, because those are off broadcast quality. So things are changing. If you want to be impactful, you have to just tell a story, and we can actually help you out. We do lots of collaborations with various parties, not just the universities, but also NGOs and all that. And we even put content from some NGOs on our television, because those are community stories that will help, and that help them to be sustainable, because other people help to fund whatever that they're doing, and the community benefits as a whole. Yep. For now, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Suhaimi. All right, okay, so there's one of the input that encouraged us as well to proceed. Talking about to become the influencer and have a better content, all right, Mr. Johnson, all right, having a better content. In 2010, there's no TikTok, there's no IG. I believe there's a Facebook those days. Could be Friendster if I'm not mistaken, all right? So how, how is actually, you tackle the field gathering these 5,000 people to help you with the project. Maybe you can share a bit the historical part, the journey since 2010 actually. What have made you become, return back to Malaysia, apart from become a fitness trainer, and then you like, no, this is not what I'm supposed to do. I need to do something, helping the community. What encouraged you? What kind of a platform you did? Can you share a bit story? Yep.
Sure. I do have to apologize that I think probably our website is slightly outdated. So some of the information that you've got off the net is probably outdated as well. But that's definitely our fault. So up to this point, we have actually built 200 homes. Or end of September, we'll be building our 200th home. And we've worked with over 8,000 volunteers to date. But you're right, Dr. Nas, that 2010 was actually a whole different world. Back then, we thought that our attention span was already short, and I think that would be 3 to 5 minute videos, and we're saying, any longer, we will lose people's attention span. In fact, actually 2010, we didn't have phones of such good quality that we weren't even taking pictures ourselves. People were still able to read long form text. And in fact, that was the first call for call to action that we put out there, where we called it the toilet building project. Of course, we had a branding issue and no one showed up. Nobody wanted to show up for this random Facebook activity called the Toilet Building Project. And that's where we thought of a new name, and we came up with Project Epic. But we just poured out, what needs we saw out there and what our passion was. And we were equally as surprised when people actually showed up. Even though we lacked, at that point in time, the credibility or experience or brand power. We were not WWF, we were not World Vision, we were not UNICEF. We were just, hey, I'm Johnson, I'm so-and-so, I recently went to this community, and this is what I saw. And we got 64 people to show up at that point in time. And I think that was one of the things that inspired me as well. I think there was a demand for such activities. One of the things that we learned was that people are tired of merely responding to pity brokering messages, where the only thing that they can do to make a difference is put money into said box. Instead, people wanted to get engaged with the communities that they're helping. They wanted to understand. They wanted to brainstorm and know the people that they were actually helping as well. And to be honest, I would say that we learned at that time that, like I said, there is a demand, and we benefited from that trend. I believe 2010 was also the generation of yes, we can, and the generation of change, and the generation of moving from apathy to activism as well. And so I would say that we were lucky at that point in time. But of course, and so by the sheer, just the internet, the power of the internet itself, powered by the new social media at that time, Facebook. I think Facebook would have been the first social media network that really took it to the next level. Of course, we had Friendster before that, but it was quite limited. We didn't have certain features that would allow for things to be shared very easily as well. And it's really just putting it on platforms like that and allowing people to share. That's where we benefited from more donors coming on board, more people coming to volunteer. I totally agree with Dr. Suhaimi's statement of how we need to be better storytellers. At that point in time, I don't think we were thinking to tell better stories, but we were thinking about how do we give better stories for people to tell. And so our focus was on crafting experiences where volunteers felt fulfilled in a wholesome manner. I think in the past, we're very used to just, I think, merely helping. How do I put it this way? I think in the past, we didn't think about the volunteer as well. The kind of experience that they have. NGOs, I think, in the past treated volunteers like a resource to fulfill something. And unfortunately, that then leads to overtime frustration. Over time, volunteers lose that sense of motivation. And so the kind of philosophy or mindset that we adopted was such that we need to make sure that the volunteer feels cared for, that what their needs are, we will try to attend to them. Because if they feel cared for, then they would naturally want to care for other people as well. And I think in the process of that, it allowed us to design our volunteer experiences in a way where they would learn new things about new skills. They would learn new things about themselves. They would also learn as much as they can about the communities that they were helping, rather than, okay, you're coming, turn up at this time, carry this box from A, put it at B, thank you very much for your service, goodbye. So I think that allowed them to internalize and experience, I think, the fulfillment of service. And that, I think, translated online, on Facebook. And that's what made them want to share their experience on photos, through posts, not videos yet, that's very rare. Pictures and photos. And that got just shared around. And just organically, things grew from there at that point in time. Yeah, I think if that answers your
Okay. I wanted to
message,
just chip in there, Johnson.
Yeah.
I think, when you were sharing just now, it just caught my mind. Would you say that in the past we were more towards what we call community service, but then you're also sharing that more recently it's now not a one-way street. It's becoming more of community engagement. In fact, just now we were having a chat about, for example, people who are a little bit not so happy, for example, with the products that were with RTM in the past. And then, we used to just push out, but now you're asking them, so what do you want if you're not happy?
Yeah.
And I think this is the other thing as well. In the past, we came to the community and said, okay, this is what you should have, even from the university point of view. I remember this. But now we're going there and say, look, what would you like us to help you with? If you would like us to help you with.
Yeah.
And I think that there's that, I think that's where the engagement comes in, which I think is different from the past, where it was more one way. Do you think that's something that you've also noticed in that whole experience?
Yeah. I actually wanted to get to that point. Thank you very much for asking the question. I just didn't know how to segue from how did we grow a volunteer movement, and how do we actually get to that point. I think in regards to that, it's I think a natural progression that's taken place over here. I think technology is a big player, a big factor in that. I think another is perhaps the development stage that this country is in, that allows for greater access to information for not just, I think nationwide, people from different income levels. I think the marginalized is no longer that marginalized anymore. Maybe they are marginalized from certain opportunities, whether it's economic and things like that. But information now it's cheap to get. As long as you get one of those cheap smartphones or internet or access to the internet, you're already dialed in and you're able to get to know what's happening around the world and what is being said, and in fact what's said about you as well. So I was just thinking about like the questions that was posed earlier, and I was just writing down, perhaps I think it's important to understand kind of the journey that we've taken and where we are right now. Uh, um, Previously, I think when we talk about marginalized communities, they have also limited airtime, and a lot of times they depend on the connected and educated, more connected people to then represent their needs. But there's also the limitation of airtime. You know, previously it's expensive. You need to get on radio, you need to get TV, you need to get on newspapers. Nowadays, everybody is a reporter. You know, and as a result of that, because it's limited, then the way that problems are portrayed, it needs to be visible, as Dato Suhaimi pointed out. It needs to be sexy or you know, attractive to someone, or needs to be urgent enough. You know, and as a result, the nuance of the complexity of the problems is missed out. And as a result, then you come up with, you know, I think for the sake of that time, in order to get help, then, you know, there's a certain way in which you need to tell a story in order to attract help. You know, like telling in, you know, those sort of promotional posters that you've probably seen, like, you know, every 3 minutes, you know, an African child dies somewhere, you know, and put these sort of statements out there. And I think it does two things. One is, I think for people who are hungry to give, after a while, if you're constantly fed fear, guilt, and shame, where they say, oh, because you're privileged, the fact that you can read means that you're already in the 5% percentile or 10% of the world, you must give back, you know. And after a while, they would develop an immunity to this kind of messaging. On the other flip side, we're talking about access to information. The marginalized are no longer someone that lives in a hut somewhere. Yes, they might still live in a hut, but they have a smartphone. So they start to read about how they are represented. And they would say, no, this may not be true, or why is it that you portray me in a way that is as though I have no ability or no capabilities to help myself at all. And I think that leads to a couple of outcomes. That would be that they become disempowered. So you develop that handout mentality, and so they lose the motivation to then try to, you know, work their way out of their circumstances. So that's one, which we do see. You know, sometimes people are like, yeah, I'll just wait for government aid, I'll just wait for NGO aid. On the other hand, then you get people who becomes increasingly skeptical, where they become very skeptical about people coming to help them, because sure, I might get aid, but in the process, I do not enjoy being treated like charity. I do not enjoy my dignity being taken away from me. And that's why sometimes you might end up in situations where people will negotiate with you. If you want to help me, what is in it for me? You know, and these sort of situations will come out as well. And that's why I think there's a need for us to shift that mindset from beneficiary and giver or donor to now partners, development partners itself. And that's why, like, even the representation of information, you know, I think you need to move beyond just the blanket statements, and find ways to, first of all, if there's no choice, but there needs to be a third party to represent them, try to represent it as accurately as possible. And I think with technology, it allows us to host a greater wealth of data and information online, and allows us to use various mediums like videos and pictures to be able to capture these things in a fair and accurate way. But where we can, then we are moving away from now the marginalized, depending fully on an NGO or a social enterprise to represent them entirely. In fact, you can now empower them to represent themselves. And I think that's the shift that needs to be taken into account.
I'm gonna take over a little bit, just no, because there's a few things that's compelling, because I'm thinking from a view of the academic at this point of time, past and present, particularly, And I think there's a few things that you brought up. And I don't know, Dr. Sami, kalau kita tengok our friend Johnson ni, he's a good storyteller lah. He's definitely got my ear, and hence I'm asking all this question.
I think he's a good man. You're very inspiring. I would want to build some of the houses,
Thank you.
Now, I think there's this movement that would want that you want to associate yourself with good people and good things.
Yeah.
I think this is happening, and people, and we have realized it. For example, I've tested it on my social media. So if you want to do something good and all that, you will be amazed with the kind of support that you will get. I've experimented it many times, and the kind of support does not only come and we wish you all the best, but okay, we have these resources. How can we help you with this? So this is where we should be heading. I think this is where the power of using the media will actually help out. And like you mentioned, it was very expensive then. You don't have access to many things. For example, if you want to go to television, you want to go to radio, it's very expensive. Now you have your own channel, whatever.
Yeah.
I do that on a daily basis. That's where I engage people on what you want to see next on television. Do you like this? Do you don't? What is it that you don't like? We'll change. We'll help you change, and they're happy with that. So I think what we should do now is try to get something that people want, which will fulfill their certain emptiness in humans. Because you want to do purpose. Exactly, that's the word I was looking. There's a purpose in life. So I think whatever that you do, your work, and when people see their purpose, yes, they say we want to do the same things too, and that it will be sustainable. At the end of the day, somebody will find a way to finance it, to do it, and then you will get to the final outcome that you want.
Dato', but
and I really admire what you do. You're a good man.
Thank you so much, Dato'.
Yeah.
okay, Dato', but can you add a bit? Who should start first when we want to influence people? Is it from media or
no,
is it?
no. I think you can all just do it together. Somebody can spark some ideas here and there, and perhaps you need one person to be some sort of an organizer. It doesn't have to be the media sometimes, because sometimes the media, they have to rush certain things out. So it could be people like you, a scientist, for example. But at the end of the day, there must be this movement, and I've seen it, and that actually helped me a lot in content generation, because there's just certain, for example, I have a bunch of producers and editors in my organization, but most of the good ideas would actually come from the people. People are actually suggesting ideas, so this is where you can actually get great ideas, and they want to come in and help out. And for example, you used to have trained journalists. Today you have citizen journalists. Yeah, sometimes you can just engage citizen journalists if they're good at what they do. So there is that, like I mentioned earlier, there is this movement to do good.
I'm going to be a bit selfish and ask this question because, and I think it goes back to what Dr. Nasro was asking as well. As a director of UM Cares, one of the things that I try to do is try to help my colleagues become better project managers in terms of the community engagement work that they do. I'd really like some of them to come forward and be like Johnson, for example, and share their ideas. But there's a few things that came out. First is that we have a lot of data. Number two, we have a lot of ideas. Kalau professor tu banyak idea dia, macam-macam idea dia. Tapi I don't know whether we are good storytellers and whether we are good video editors, for example. These are the two skills that you shared with us just now. In your experience, and just going back, is that something that you've noticed that colleagues of mine and myself might be lacking, that we need to build something about? Because that's something that I can do quite straight on. But I'm just thinking, because we didn't have that in high school. Yeah. Definitely was in my medical program, it wasn't there. I don't know whether Dr. Nasro had an engineering program. But now that's what people are expecting us to be able to do in order for you to get more engagement, more support, and of course impact of the project. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
I think we have to share resources. I need data a lot. Yeah, so this is where I can actually go to you and your friends. and we can actually assist you with storytelling and perhaps video production and all that. So I think at the end of the day, it's how you help one another. There's no way you can learn a lot of things and accomplish things, because time is actually moving. So you have to share resources and you have to move together. So basically, now I'm quite selfish too. Can we actually start this program because earlier on before the show, before this discussion, I always think of things as show. Before the show, we were discussing some of the things that you're doing, and I think those are great things that we should also have on our OTT, because we have different set of audiences. So some prefer to understand what's actually going on in the universities, in research and all that. And I think this is where we all should actually work together. We don't have the knowledge to know everything, so we can actually share resources and move together on. The project is on. Yes.
Okay, definitely boleh. Jalan.
All right, okay, before we go to the Q&A, I believe there's some of the questions coming from the floor. I would like to know about the direction in the coming future. Where do you see the involvement of these 5 different stakeholders we are talking about? When I was a kid, I still remember that I'm watching a Discovery Channel. All right, and up until today also, we're still watching this Discovery Channel. So how sustained this Discovery Channel had influenced us. All right, so can we have something like that visible to our researcher, to our industries as well? One special channel, even though nowadays we have YouTubers, influencers, IGs, stories, and etc. But when mentioned about Discovery Channel, people are still referring to the channel of a Discovery Channel. We are still keep on watching, oh, there's an educator, researcher doing this and this and this, and etc. This is something for me is a bit missing platform here in Malaysia. So if we can have that kind of a thing, like what we did right now, 1 hour talk show discussing people from a different background, 5 people combined, and then everyone will alert, oh, this is what we need. Because like what I mentioned just now, Malaysia have a 12-month sustained environment, sustained weather, but we still have the same problem, traffic jam, flood, and etc. So these are some of the things that for the past of 30 years, we need to think of something on how these 5 elements are able to make Malaysia become a better place. Any input from you, Dato'?
Yeah, we call it the new improved Discovery Channel. Lots of improvement is happening at the moment, and we are now, when we don't have resources, we have to rely on artificial intelligence, and it's already happening in my industry. During the 31st of August, the coming Independence Day, you can listen to Trax FM, where the whole documentary is actually produced by robots. Yeah, the audio. So you will have a story on Malaysia's independence, narrated by a robot who speaks with an American accent. So everything is now done by the robots, artificial intelligence. So we're moving and we're improving. And lots of problems, like you mentioned, after 30 years we still see things. Yeah? But with artificial intelligence, I'm all for artificial intelligence if done, if you do it if you do it right. Yeah, I think information must be shared. Yeah, information should not just be in universities, but the information in universities must be made simple and sexy. That's the word. Simple and sexy for us to consume and for us to build on it. So I think this is where we should move, or else things will be left in silos and we will never even find them, and you don't get to know your neighbors or the communities that you're supposed to actually help. I think the best way forward is things have to be simple, people must understand it, it has to be visible, and we invite people so that they will get the experience that they need, the volunteers that will come, so that we can have a better environment, living the world, and that is basically what nation building is all about. Yeah. And my God, I'm beginning to sound like a politician. Yeah, that's where we should be heading. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Soemi. Mr. Johnson, from the generation of 2010, you mentioned just now, yes, we can do generation, but nowadays, 2020, we have a generation. Why we need to do that? All right. For example, in my class, for example, we learn about calculus, we learn about physics and etc. So we are in a generation. Why we want to do that? So we might have some kind of questions as well, why we need to help others, why we need to have committees. Maybe you can brief a bit the future direction. Where do you foresee about a challenge of the empowering this kind of a project, for example, tackling this issue?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's true. I think that this particular generation, we are overloaded with information, with stories. You know, we've probably seen the same story happen in different languages, and and told many times. And so there's a certain immunity or numbness to it already. And I suppose because of people who have access to more information, then they would want to know how to utilize their resources more wisely, I suppose. That's why I'm taking a positive mindset to that. That's why they're asking, why should I do that? And I think that while emotions, trying to reach people on an emotional level is extremely important to trigger action, I think data is becoming more and more important. And I think with data, then it also allows for precision. It also allows for us to organize resources and organize people better. I'll give you an example, I suppose, in terms of what we're doing right now. We have something called the Pathfinder Initiative. And so the Pathfinder Initiatives are essentially a group of volunteers that we're training in how to engage, talk to community members in a dignified way while gathering information. And recently, we just added an additional component to it, and be able to represent and tell the story in a compelling way to attract support, the required support to a particular community itself. So how it works is, we've got a data collection template that's been prepared. We train our pathfinders. They go into a community, and they try to understand things on a household level, and also they speak to representatives, leaders, and community champions who may not be in formal positions to understand what their needs, their aspirations are. The reason, just to share with you, so we use an asset-based development, asset-based mapping approach, where we're not just doing a needs analysis or assessment, but we're also there to also find out what the aspirations are. And the reason for that is, I think from a storytelling standpoint, it's so that we can get people from a short-term mindset of problem solving to let's journey along the way with them to reach their dream. And that's in terms of how we recruit resources. I think having that sort of conversation and understanding or contextualizing what the needs are in the context of, or in the framework of, what assets exist today, where your aspirations are, and what is the gap holding you back from where you currently are to your aspirations. By having that sort of conversation with the community members as well, it also helps them break out of that sort of problem mindset, where they're used to just seeing all the problems they like to solve. But that's also another very short-term sort of mindset to have. So they go through that process together with the community members. We then are able to understand what are the projects or what are the needs that this community might have that could potentially turn into a project. Our lead pathfinder then would create a video, thankfully, thanks to AI, who is going to make it very easy. And then we're going to be publishing it online on social media, where people would then understand, hey, there is such a community that exists. This is what their aspirations are. This is how they look like. These are the needs that they have. And would you like to join them on this journey? And so the outcome that we're hoping to see is one where, so from EPIC's standpoint, we have the solution of homes. But we're talking really about solving, or not just solving problems, but providing social mobility so that the people can move from their current circumstance now and elevate themselves. There's many different factors that come into play that needs to be approached in an integrated manner. And so as one organization, I can only provide homes, right? But I know that there are organizations that looks at energy, education, social businesses or finance. And they just need to know where to distribute their resources itself. So all this information would then be hosted. So we'll create a community profile with the priority list, and we will host it on a web platform. Of course, we'll adhere to PDPA, and that will be kept private and only given to people who are authorized. But otherwise, it's good enough to allow for universities, for NGOs, for even corporates who are doing CSR to mobilize themselves, and in this manner to work on a micro level from community to community, where through the web platform, it does not also need to depend on me, on EPIC as an organization, but we have a decentralized way of working on it. And I think that increasingly that's going to be the case moving forward, where we're moving from surface level, where, oh, we have water problems, we have shelter problems, to now how do we actually create customized, personalized solutions for communities through the power of collaboration. Yeah, so I
All
think
right.
that's my...
Thank you,
yeah.
Mr. Johnson. Collaboration into a next level we are talking about, okay? Different kind of a committee, different kind of set up by the government, for example. Talking about Nusantara, Malaysia, and also Indonesia. So we have a last question here before we go with the Q&A. So Dr. Ameh, we are talking about the Nusantara project between Malaysia and also Indonesia. We are sharing almost a similar food, okay? They have tempeh, we also eat tempeh. They have sambal hijau, we also have sambal nasi lemak. So we are kind of sharing a same feeling here, and so dealing with the same problem. We have a traffic jam, they also have macet, all right? Recently, we've been approached about a project related to the stunting, all right? Macam mana stunting in Malaysian kids with also the Indonesian kid as well. So where do you see this incoming future? Any kind of project that we should empower between Malaysia and Indonesia to improve this kind of collaboration? We want to shift to a next level, not just get the committee here in Malaysia, but as well in Indonesia as well. Over to you, Dr. Ameh.
I think that's a very good question. I think, first of all, we're going to be discussing a little bit of that in tomorrow's forum with other collaborators from a number of countries, actually. But I think just to give you an idea, at the moment, this partnership that we're having with Universitas Airlangga is a start, I think, towards that same question that I asked myself, and I think Dr. Prativi also asked during one of our meetings a number of years ago. You know, we have so much similarities. How do we actually collaborate in terms of ensuring that some of the really good projects that are happening in Malaysia and Indonesia are able to be shared across both countries? So I think it's a platform like this where we need to have more of these kind of open platforms to discuss about this kind of issues further. What we do need, I think, moving forward is going to be trust. When you're working among countries and different stakeholders, the issue of trust becomes an issue. There's always an issue in terms of academia, something called intellectual property, that is often a conscientious point, and often a lot of discussion is put in at that particular juncture. So I think we need to first establish trust. Second is about establishing an open communication. As we shared just now, lots of academics have a lot of ideas. Some of the ideas might have different philosophies. As a result of that, there's a lot of discourse and debate which might not be very healthy. But I think in any solution, there are multiple ways of actually addressing the question rather than just one size fits all. So I think the second one is about having an open opportunity for that discussion. And I think the third one is going to be support and funding. I put that separately because support could be institutional support, and funding could be institutional and also funding from outside. Because for any project to actually happen, there needs to be some level of support, whether in cash or kind. So I think these are the kind of opportunities and areas that I think we can work together in further enhancing some of the similarities, but the similar problems that we're having, but at the same time look for gaps and opportunities that we can then address together as a region rather than as member nations at large.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ameh. Now we would like to end the session, and then we would like to continue with the Q&A session. If there's any input or anything to share or being asked, by the floor? Yes, you can raise your hand, and then yes. Microphone.
Thank you. Good evening, speakers. Thank you for the very lively discussion. I actually quite enjoyed it. But I think for me, as an academician in I'm more concerned about are there any tips or magic words that should be used when we propose for application in grants based on community? Is there something that you guys are looking for that when you look at it, immediately you say, okay, this is a good project, it's viable, it's workable, it gives impact towards the community in the future and whatnot. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to answer in terms of grants that we have within the university and probably within the Ministry of Higher Education. But I'm pretty sure that Johnson has some experience in applying for grants outside or actually getting support from industry for projects. I think the key word now is impact. The key word now, I think, is impact. I think the other key word is about having an impact narrative from the very beginning of your project until the end, which includes dissemination of that particular work. So all funders, including our side and also government agency, wants to understand what impact's all about. And at the same time, they want you to be able to visibilize the project that you're actually doing. And of course, the third one will be about the budget. I think if there's going to be a tip, is for you to really understand the budget that you're applying for, and of course the call for action, which we often see some of the gaps that colleagues are not able to get good grants, if that's what you're asking. But I think in the bigger picture now, the pentahelix that has been shared, I think Prof. Mansoor later will share a little bit more, is really something that you really need to not only just know, but actually incorporate in any of the projects that you do. I don't know, Johnson, is there any tips in applying for grants at all that you've experienced? Certain words that might win you a grant compared to others, apart from the name Johnson Uy?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a magic answer to that, but I think having I mean, of course, if you have a track record as well, that definitely helps. But if not, then having partnerships with, or leveraging off partnerships with other organizations as well, that usually gives you a much better advantage in applying for a grant. I think another very pragmatic one would be, and I find this, I think as an idealist, is working out your KPIs or deliverables and how you organize your tranches, because usually grants, you know, depending on the size of it, some of it would have tranches as well, and having clear, realistic deliverables. And as an idealist, sometimes you would want to see the outcomes and the impact reflected in the grant as well. But I think most grant is short term, and so it's to really be honest with yourself and put very achievable, realistic deliverables. But while you're at it as well, I think on a personal level, then you would have to have the integrity to follow through to ensure that whatever outputs or short-term outcomes can actually be leveraged on to turn into impact. Yeah. Other than that, I think I do agree with Dr. Amir about ensuring that narrative gets followed through. I suppose doing your research about where the grant's coming from and what they care about, what their pillars are, what their focus areas are, that helps as well. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Now, hope it's answer. What is your all right. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Mazia. Yes. Can we have one more questions before we end the session? Because later on we have, yes, the back there.
Good evening to all the speakers, and I just want to ask, what advantages or profits do the media agencies can get by promoting or distributing the work done that has the work that has been done by the universities? That's all.
Can you repeat louder sikit? Tak dengar, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Can I ask, or what advantages or the benefits can the work agencies can get by promoting or disseminating or distribution the work that has been done by universities?
Alright, okay, maybe Datuk can answer about this. What could be the advantage when we promoting our research?
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Right.
Okay. In life, you would normally have many people who would want to support your cause. Yeah, be it in the form of ideas, money, sponsorship, facilities, whatever. So when you tell your story and make yourself and your projects visible, chances are people will there to help you. Yeah, they will come in droves, and it will make your work easier. So that is why I always say that you have to make yourself visible, tell a great story, that then their funders will actually come in and help you out, and no questions asked sometimes, because they know that you are doing something good. So that is basically the benefits of telling a story and telling a story well. I hope that answered your question. And yeah, okay, good. Thank
Alright, okay, thank you so much, Dato'. So basically, that question is actually the last session for our forum today, because we need to prepare for talk by Prof. Mansur later on. Alright, so thank you so much to all of our panel, Associate Professor Dr. Amir Siddiq bin Amir Nordin, Datuk Suhaimi bin Sulaiman, and also Mr. Johnson Oi. All right, so with that, I will return the session to our chairman, Dr. Azizi. All right, thank you. Remain on stage.
Okay, thank you very much, our moderator and our invited panels, Dr. Nasrul. Okay, as a token of appreciation, we would like to call upon our director, UMCAS director, Associate Professor Dr. Amir Siddiq Amir Nordin, to give a memento to our invited speakers. Okay, we shall start first with our Director General of Broadcasting Malaysia, Datuk Suhaimi Sulaiman. And our CEO of Epic Collective, Mr. Johnson. Okay, with that, thank you. End of this forum one. Okay, now we have a tea break and networking sessions, but we shall resume back. Please remain in with our event. We will at 4:15. We will have our preliminary one with our speaker, Professor Dr. Mansur Abu Talib, with the title of the plenary session, The Role of the Pentahelix Model for the Community Development Program. Okay.